Hi, good afternoon, everybody. This is Katie Chuba
I'll watch it.
from the Hartland Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us today on today's webinar. We're thrilled to have you. We're just going to kind of hang out for a couple minutes and wait for many folks to join us. We have a lot of people that signed up today in the county for our Getting Back to Business, our fire and safety. This is the third webinar in our collaborative series that we have done with the Hartland, Howell area, Greater Brighton, and Ann Arbor Spark collaboration. So we have wonderful partners and wonderful leaders in our community that have been so kind to join us on these webinar series to help our area businesses and help our community. So thank you. So we're just going to kind of hang out just a couple seconds here while we I'm kind of watching the numbers of the attendees climb that are have registered and are joining us today. So we appreciate your patience. And I hope you guys are all doing well. I think it's a little crazy that it's cold out. I'm not going to lie.
It's Michigan.
Is it still going to snow on Friday?
So they say.
It's Michigan.
It's Michigan. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. And those that, the folks that join us, I can pick up where they come on in. So again, we'll just do a little roundtable introduction with our fire and safety webinar today. I'm Katie Chuba. I'm the director at the Hartland Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm joined by my colleagues, the other Livingston County chambers, Howell, Brighton, again, Ann Arbor Spark, as well as our fire chiefs and our Livingston County Sheriff. So we're gonna just go ahead and let them introduce themselves, and I'm gonna turn it over to Pam at Brighton.
Oh, well, I am Pam, and I'm the president and CEO at the Greater Brighton Area Chamber of Commerce, and we're very happy to have you. We're very happy to have our distinguished guests today. We're looking forward to our conversation with them. So thanks for being with us today.
Janelle?
And I'm going to hand it to Janelle. Relay race.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Janelle Best, president of the Howell Area Chamber of Commerce, and we are so excited to be here today for an update on fire and safety. Thank you to our panelists who have joined us today, and we love this collaboration as we've mentioned throughout the series. We hope this is kind of the first of many as we navigate through some of these uncharted waters. So thanks for joining us, and we hope that today's session provides you with a little more clarity. All right, and Marcia, did you want to add anything?
So my name is Marcia Gaborowski. I am with Ann Arbor Spark here in Livingston County, and we know that we want to help businesses get back into business and help restart Livingston's economy. And we are all here and collaborating, working for businesses across Livingston County. Please reach out to us if you do have questions. We have all worked really hard to continue to provide resources, bring referrals, and again, I really look forward to continuing this collaboration of bringing resources to you, the businesses of Livingston County.
Thank you, Marcia. Chief Pless, since you're not on mute, I'm going to put you on the spot.
I don't know how to do that. Hi, I'm Andy Pless. I'm the fire chief of the Howell Area Fire Authority. We cover the townships of Osceola, Cohocton, Howell Township, missing one, City of Howell, and Marion Township. So, sorry, it's been a long day. I've been actively participating in the Emergency Operations Center for the past couple of months since we opened it. It's been in full operation for the last few weeks. I'm the Fire Service Operations Section Chief for that, and we've been doing this every day. And if there's anything we can do to help you out and get you back into business, we'd be more than happy to share whatever information we have. I figured out how to mute it.
Thank you, Andy. We appreciate that. Mr. O'Brien.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mike O'Brien. I'm the fire chief for the Brighton Area Fire Authority. We cover Brighton Township, the city of Brighton, and Genoa. We have 5 fire stations, and we have a mix of on-duty personnel as well as paid on call. I think like everybody on this call, we've been working not only within our community to try to keep our firefighters safe as they respond to incidents, but how do we keep a workforce healthy and safe? And I think some of that has much to do with some of the psychological aspects of going into work in very uncertain times. And so we have a lot of lessons learned, and we look forward to sharing those with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Carroll?
Hey, Adam Carroll, Hartland Deerfield Fire Authority, saying we cover Hartland Township, Deerfield Township, and actually we contract for about half of Tyrone Township. But similar makeup, similar configuration. The three of us actually, and including Murph, spend an inordinate amount of time together on a daily basis trying to keep tabs on what's going on today and what we expect to come tomorrow. And usually we guess wrong about tomorrow. But very much same comments that fell in line with Andy and Mike as far as we kind of have been slugging through this thing since day one, and have learned a lot, got a little road rash to show for it, and are happy to share some of those lessons learned and best practices. So
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Hi, Sheriff Murphy.
Hi. So Sheriff Murphy, been a cop for 32 years, been with the Sheriff's Office for 30. I cover the area that they all mentioned, plus all the unincorporated areas of the county, and I'll just say ditto, ditto, ditto. So there you go.
Thanks. Thanks,
You're our
Murphy.
favorite sheriff ever.
Thank you, Sheriff Murphy. So those of you that have joined us on the webinar today, as we take turns going around and our wonderful first responder panelists give us an update on kind of what they're doing internally, maybe some of the things that they've seen. We're going to kind of leave this really open and conversational among our panelists. If you have questions along the way, please, we are encouraging questions. Just type them in the Q&A, and you know, we'll tackle them, and I'll try to facilitate as best I can. And let's just get started. Who would like to go first? Tell us what's going on with your own employees. What are you doing for safety precautions? I mean, you guys are on the front lines. What are you seeing? Are people behaving? Are they not behaving? And what suggestions do you have for area businesses and us as consumers as we try to navigate through this reopening process that we're all so anxiously awaiting? Who wants to go? I'm just going to throw it out there.
Katie, I'll jump in, I guess.
Thank you,
first.
Mike.
And yeah, you know, so Brighton Fire was probably one of the first to start issuing what we would call social distancing pretty early. We had to cancel a lot of the things that we would normally do, such as public events with children, class groups, going and visiting schools, even letting our crews go out. In most of the fire departments, we probably all followed suit in a similar time early in March as the cases started to ramp up probably throughout the country. Early on, we started something that we call our health and wellness checks. So all of our responders, when they come into work each day, they do a couple things. And even when they're not on duty, they're doing the same check. So that's a temperature check every day. For some of our employees, it's twice a day. And then we're always asking the same series of questions to see if there's an onset of symptoms specific to COVID. So I'm sure the health department spoke about this in the past, but it really gives us that snapshot, because we started out by saying, if you don't feel well, don't come to work. But, you know, we have allergy season, we have all these things that we're dealing with. And so that was one of the first steps that we took. Now, over time, one of the things that I would say that we really focused on was having an open mind with our staff. Our staff, probably much like everybody on this call, hates uncertainty. They want us to chart this perfect plan through the first time. And one of the key traits that we were really trying to put on our staff is you've got to have an open mind. You got to stay flexible, because this is going to change every day as we learn more and we learn best practices. And so after we got that attitude adopted really quick from our staff, it was all hands. It couldn't just be the chief's office, the deputy chief's office. It had to be all of our employees in their environments on how do we keep them safe. So, you know, much that you talk about are many of the things that you probably are doing in your own home, such as frequent cleaning of touch surfaces. How often should we be cleaning things? From microphones and cabs to the equipment that we use on incidents. to keeping our workspaces, the fire stations clean, were all things that we had to do. And I think most of us are following that guidance that health department or CDC has given out. And we try to apply it to our business model. But probably I would say one of the hardest things for us was to tackle that psychological aspect. We had to continue to make sure that our staff felt safe at work. And it was the pressure that not only they received from their partner at home or their family at home in making sure the responders were safe, as well as they didn't want them to bring it back home with them. And so we needed to really step up our game, not only in making sure we provided protection for our firefighters, that we kept them as informed. And one of the things that we truly found was utilizing technology early, over communicating, asking for feedback, looking for better ways, comparing with our peers on this call, how they were doing things, because we wanted to make sure our employees felt safe. And I think probably for most of the people on this call as well, you have really two things that you're going to try to do. Is you got to keep your people safe from COVID, and then you have to, your employees, to get them to come into work. So they've got to be safe with precautions. They got to feel safe at work. But more importantly, you got to make sure your customers feel safe coming in. And it was probably no different with us. You know, people calling 911 don't want to call 911 and feel that we're bringing COVID to their door. And so we had some of those aspects as well. And being that it's fire safety, you know, we would be remiss to think that some of the things that you have to do to keep your patrons safe for COVID may not be the smartest fire safety. You know, so blocking off areas of your store might limit your exit and egress capabilities, or locking doors so you only have one way into so you can count may not be the best for fire safety purposes. And so there's going to be a lot of blending, I think, as you learn, but that would be probably the rough snapshot of some of the things that we had to do. But I can't underestimate of over communicating with your staff. Uncertain times need you as a business leader to stay strong, because if you're not, and overly communicating and being vulnerable to saying, I don't know, but we'll work on finding that answer together, really makes a huge impact with your staff in getting them to perform. Because if we had a red flu where a bunch of firefighters didn't want to show up for work today, it would be a problem for us. And so calming their fears was as much necessary as everybody else.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Good information. Andy or Adam, can you, either one of you want to kind of elaborate a little bit more, or even share what you're experiencing as well, or any tips?
Yeah, I'll chip in. Wow, that's hard to follow. Mike covered most of it. We're doing basically exactly the same thing. We're doing temperature checks in the morning and before they leave. Big thing we're doing is cleaning the fire stations twice a day. So when they first come in the morning, they're cleaning them, and then in the afternoon, they're cleaning all the hard surfaces. We bought some cleaners that we're using we're diluting, and you know, we're going through quite a bit of it. It's a type you spray on and you leave on the surface and let it dry. That'll kill the virus. You know, those types of things. We're still going out in the public and doing smoke alarms and things like that, but we're taking extra precautions when we do. When we enter somebody's home, we're wearing our masks and gloves and that type of thing. So we haven't stopped really doing our business. We're continuing to do what we need to do. We have stopped, the kids programs and the fire safety programs and things like that, and throttled back on fire inspections. But we still have projects going on. We're still doing that kind of thing. So we're open for business. We're still doing things, but I just reiterate what Chief O'Brian said is the over communication part. I started out doing daily updates. I dropped back to every other day, and now it's every 3 days because things have kind of calmed down a little bit. You can overload them at first, but then they stop reading your emails if you give too much information too. So and just pertinent information, bullet pointed pertinent information is what I gave our employees. Just keep them up to speed what's going on, because like I said, the information thing that's what they otherwise they just make up their own, right? So or what they saw in the news or whatever. So there was a lot of putting out little fires in the beginning because there were so many rumors and so many other thoughts, and everybody had their own idea what was going on. So it like Chief O'Brian said, it takes a strong leader. You got to be able to share with your people, and if you don't know, we'll find out the answer. We're very fortunate because we're in the EOC every day. So we're meeting with the health department and the police and fire and EMS, and we're all putting our collective heads together, and we've gotten through this. So yeah, that's what I can share.
Thank you so much. Chief Carroll, what's going on over there in our neck of the woods?
Oh, I agree with everything they said. Yeah. Actually, I do, and it's Mike started and finished with the big message, and Andy built on it, which is that communicating thing, right? And it's important that they understand that we don't know everything, but what your staff, what your employees really want to know is that you don't know something, as dumb as that sounds. Here's what I'm looking into. Here's what we're evaluating. Here's what we're right. And it's just getting that level of trust in them and what you're doing to provide not only a safe workplace for your employees, but also for any customers coming in. And, for us, that started, I can't remember, well, I guess I could look it up, on February 27th, right? And we wrote a letter, actually, that we emailed to all staff. We wrote a separate one and emailed it to the families directly, just kind of saying, listen, here's some information. And we're not climbing out from under a rock. We're aware of what's going on. Here's what we're doing to monitor it. Here's steps that we're taking, right? And that just continues to escalate, and that communication has evolved into countless Google Hangouts and Zoom meetings and Blue Jeans and whatever other brand of video conferencing is out there. But from there, it's just making those adjustments to your current operations to make sure that you can both safely and successfully operate on a day-to-day basis. And some of it's a little forecasting, and then it's just staying plugged into new information. And again, building off Andy's comment, an advantage to some degree of being plugged in with the EOC system is we get pretty timely information. I will tell you, as you dig into this, and you probably have already started doing this anyway, some of the information requires a discerning eye. Data is not information. And there's lots of data out there. In fact, there's a new one that states now talking that they're going to start reporting probable COVID cases. Oh, that'll be helpful. Thank you very much. Anyway, it's important that we, again, and I just literally hit my email. I can tell you, for instance, probably within the next 12 to 24 hours, I will have communicated with all my staff about what probable means and how we are evaluating that and basically consuming that data, trying to turn it into actual information. That one is going to be a stretch, honestly, but that's what you got to do. So.
Thanks, Chief Carroll. Appreciate it. And, I'm going to dig just a little. I mean, I have questions. I don't know about Janelle and Pam, but, as far as like calls go, like, are you seeing a decrease in call volume with everybody staying home? Is it quite on the forefront? And maybe, I know Sheriff Murphy, we haven't gotten to you yet, but, I definitely want to talk to you about the whole mental aspect of the county and whether or not that's initiating some busyness within your department. So as far as the chiefs go.
So there has been a slight decrease for probably most of us. Just, we don't have the number of cars on the freeway. So those of us, all three of us, are covering a good portion of freeway. So the vehicle accidents just aren't there, and some of our numbers are down. Now, I would say that we're probably up 15 to 20% in overall deaths. So, or death-related calls. Those could be some overdoses. They could be addiction-related type things. It goes into a couple things. One of the things that I think is really interesting is people are afraid to go get medical care right now because they're so scared of getting COVID. I was on the phone today with staff from St. Joe, and one of the statements that they said is they're seeing this more advanced health issues coming in that people should have come to them sooner. And so really reiterating to people, it's okay to go to the hospitals right now. They are cleaning, disinfecting, separating COVID positive from the rest. The whole hospital isn't infected with COVID. It's a limited portion that they're separating. So people need to go and seek medical care when they think they need to. And that's probably one of the things you're going to start to see transition. But a really sad fact in the state of Michigan is home fire deaths are actually up because people are home. And we're up probably, I don't know if Adam has the numbers or Andy does, but it's probably in about 15 to 25% higher than last year, our home fire deaths. And so we'd probably, it'd be very sad if we didn't say, check your smoke alarms. You're working from home right now, check your smoke alarms and take time to do that, because for that reason alone, we're seeing an increase in home fire deaths, right? Cooking's up. We know cooking's a leading cause of home fires. And so in many cases, that's what we're seeing. And I think, you know, probably Sheriff Murphy can even add just in some of the stuff that they're seeing. There's a tension within some of our incident responses, just that people are getting frustrated. And all we can say is we're in this together. And collectively, we've got to keep the peace, because our staff's starting to, you know, request police presence more and more. They're starting to request other things. And it's just this general angst and uneasiness.
Thank you, Chief O'Brien. Appreciate that. And with that, Murphy, I'd love to turn it over to you.
So I had to chuckle when Chief O'Brien mentioned flexibility, and one of the reasons that people get into public safety, whether it's fire or the police end of things, is because they like a little bit of adrenaline dump. They don't like the same thing over and over and over again. But God forbid if you change a policy or ask them to do something that's out of their norm, they freak out, right? So it's kind of ironic. But at any rate, everything that they said as far as the employees go, I will pat ourselves on the back a little bit, though, in that, you know, we've been through not COVID, obviously, but other types of incidents before, especially in the jail, which has allowed us to have some pretty good policies and procedures in place right from the get-go. So we weren't starting from, you know, ground zero, essentially. You know, we've been there with MRSA, we've been there with TB, we've had a mercury spill in the jail. You know, the list goes on and on when you're dealing with people, right, and communicable diseases. So one of the things on that side of the house that's been a godsend, quite frankly, was the new addition. That's allowed us to have as much social distancing, if there is such a thing in a jail. But really what it's done is it's allowed us to quarantine new arrivals as well. So everybody that comes in the jails quarantined for 14 days, which is outstanding. Some sheriffs don't, most sheriffs don't have the luxury of being able to do that. So with that, with the policies and procedures we've got in place, and with a phenomenal staff, we've had no instances of COVID in the jail. So that was a huge concern when we went into this thing, because you know, I would have bet the farm we were going to have it. So we're obviously still not out of the woods, a long ways from it, but you know, we've done a great job so far. And as I think Chief Pless mentioned, I mean, the jail's getting washed down a couple times a day, et cetera, et cetera. So, and by the way, just another plug for my staff. This is corrections week, by the way. So a huge pat on the back for them. But, you know, and Chief O'Brien mentioned just that angst that's out there. So on the road side and the field services side of the house, yes, everybody's under an enormous amount of pressure right now, because they don't know. There's no greater fear than the fear of the unknown, right? I mean, if you know going into something, this is going to be the outcome, okay, you've got a little bit of an opportunity to deal with that. But when you don't know the outcome of something, or that fear is what really drives that angst. So that, coupled with the fact that you've got folks that are out of a job, laid off, they've been stuck with their family, quite frankly. Maybe they like their family, maybe they don't. And even if you like your family, after, you know, 2 months, your family gets on your nerves a little bit too. I mean, that's just the way that it is. So that's led to an increase in domestic violence, of course, increase in mental health, and increase in overdoses. So those are the big three areas that we're seeing really countywide that have shown a significant increase. And the other calls, you know, it's kind of changed the way we've done business too, just like the other chiefs have mentioned. You know, I pride myself in the fact that my guys and gals will go to somebody's house if there's a call for service, really kind of no matter what it is. And a lot of the minor stuff is being taken, actually all the minor stuff is being taken over the phone now. And, I love community policing, and that's not community policing, but it has to be that way, obviously, for now. But the rest of the other crimes are still out there, of course, and we're dealing with them, just, protecting ourselves the best we can when we have to deal with them, so.
Thanks, Murph. Appreciate it. I know, Pam, before we went live today, you were talking about events. Can we chat about that a little bit? You're on mute, just so you know. Here, I'll help you. Oh.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we started today, and I was wondering, for all of us chambers, what it looks like for civic events this summer and fall, and what you're thinking. Nobody really knows, but if you can just share what your thoughts are on whether we're going to be able to have civic events after a certain time, if there's going to be social distancing, if it's even feasible to have those events, because chambers depend on events for income. So it's important to know. It's on our minds. Who wants to answer? Don't jump all at once.
Yeah. One of the things that I was most looking forward to when this started was, let's have a great 4th of July parade. And I think, the various communities, Memorial Day, 4th of July, those were the things I was thinking about. And, it's hard to imagine that even the 4th of July might be too far away yet for us to determine if we can do it safely. And I think as chambers, as community leaders, all of us are going to make some emphasis to see where is the data, what is the science at that point in time, and what guidance do we have, and what have we learned? And the amount of transition that has occurred in the last 8 weeks in our business, in everybody's business, is unbelievable, right? Telemedicine has probably made more jumps in the last 8 weeks than it did in the last 3 years. And so part of me says, on our community events, I wouldn't be surprised if we're unable to have them, that the crowd is not lifted this summer. And I know that's not what we want to hear, but, in part, we have to prepare for that. Mm-hmm. If it is lifted, what would it look like? And I think, certain things that we don't do. You think about most of our community events, you don't spread 25 hand washing stations, 40 hand washing stations throughout downtown Brighton or downtown Howell as part of the event. If you had an event in early June, I'd probably tell you there's no way. It's just not going to happen, especially with Livingston being put in with the region with the counties to our east. Now, July, August, could it be different, right? We don't know what the virus is going to do with the heat. There's speculation, and there's lots of speculation, but we're going to know based on our testing what the population is. And I'm looking forward to, honestly, a stretch in June where Livingston County has no new reported cases. And if we can start going weeks and weeks and weeks with no new reported cases or single-digit reported cases, I think that's a game changer. And so we all have our planner hats on, and you've got to make contracts and sign stuff. Yeah. And I wish there was a crystal ball, but what I would start to do is, just like I would if it was my business, I'd have plan A, and I'd have plan B, and I'd probably go down to plan D. And could you limit? Could you do it virtually? Could you do, you think of Smokin' Jazz Blues Fest, right? Is it time to go virtual? Something that we can share at least the good music, people can dial in and have a sense of community and bring the community together that way versus a full-on cancel.
Yeah, but what about the beer sales, Chief? We need those beer sales.
And I can't eat my ribs virtually, for crying out loud. Come on.
Right. I mean, come on. That's not going to happen.
we could set up the stands across town, and you'd have to drive, and not the beer, but at least get your ribs.
Oh yeah, drink and drive. All right, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think, Chief O'Brien probably answered that the best you can. I know, nobody's got a crystal ball, but I think at the end of the day, it is going to take a while for there to be that plateau of no new cases or very few before people, quite frankly, want to get out, right? Even if there were no restrictions today, even if the governor came out and said, you know what, all EOs are done, we're back to business as usual, I don't think anybody's going to be in a rush to go to the movie theater or go fill up a restaurant, unfortunately, because we all miss that, right? But there's going to be, people are going to social distance, I think, for a little bit. They're going to dip their toe in the water and kind of take things a little bit easy, I think.
So Murph, you had a good point. You're talking about, these rules, right, of lifting everything and what does social distancing look like. And I have to share, this past weekend, we all know it was beautiful out, 70 degrees. I was driving down M59. There were people everywhere. I saw a gentleman, it looked like he was maybe jogging one way and then his buddy was coming the other way on a bike. Well, he was off his bike and they were 3 feet apart talking. I had actually a business member come over my house, long story. And she's like, we're done. We had a bonfire last night, invited our neighbors over. And I was like, oh, okay. My neighbor came over my house and stood right next to me. He was going to go hug me. And I just kind of went like this. He goes, oh man, I forgot. So do you feel, I guess my question is I'm seeing these things and maybe you are too. And I was in Rural King recently and people are wearing their masks. Here, I laugh. I thought of you, Adam, with the fire department's video of how not to wear your mask or how to wear your mask. And I would say 50% of the people, no mask or not wearing it correctly. So with that being said, I mean, do you think that people are going to throw in the towel and more or less when the sunshine comes out and they're out and about are going to be like craving that?
So my crystal ball says there are going to be many more people out, as we've known from this weekend, right? Being nice out. However, they're very picky in who they're around, right? So when I have a bonfire and I invite 10 people over, I got a pretty good idea who those 10 people are. I got a pretty good idea if they shower every day or at least every other day. I got a pretty good idea if they wash their hands once a month. You know what I'm saying? I mean, those are the types of people that that are going to be invited. So when you go to a restaurant or movie theater or whatever where there's large groups of people, you have no idea who's there. So my crystal ball says for little social gatherings, absolutely. People are pent up. They got to have that. We're social creatures by habit, right? That's as human beings. But the large, Mike O'Brien, Chief O'Brien mentioned the 4th of July, which, by the way, we need to chat on that one, partner. But is downtown Brighton going to have 12,000 people standing shoulder to shoulder on the 4th? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And Janelle, I know, well, Pam too, but we've kind of heard things with other chambers through the Michigan Chamber of Commerce and our association that we're involved with, but most of the chambers throughout the state have canceled all of their civic events for the year. Janelle, is that correct?
That's a lot of what I'm hearing too. I know we're all part of the Michigan Association of Chamber Professionals, and we have a standing call weekly that we listen for updates and try to make our plans. And I can't remember who mentioned it, but somebody mentioned having those plans A, B, C, D, and yeah, I think that as chambers in Livingston County, I think we're all making those plans right now. So seeing what we can do to go virtual and still bring a sense of unity and community to our county by being creative within the guidelines that are set forth and making sure that we're providing a safe environment as well. But yeah, as far as civic events go, that's definitely what we're hearing at the state level and even on a national level. So I know that there's some updates for Michigan festivals and events. Tomorrow, I think there's a webinar. So maybe they'll have some more information on that. But yes, that's kind of what we're hearing. And I know that at the Howell Chamber, we're just, of course, monitoring everything as closely as we can. And right now, another thing that I've heard is right now for planning purposes, every 90 days, reevaluate in 90 days. So.
Awesome, thanks. I feel like I'm monopolizing a lot of this with questions, so.
90 days sounded really exciting to the three of us, actually, or four of us rather. That would be great if it was only 90 days. The Sheriff Murphy mentioned it, and I it's no different, honestly, than some of the other risks that you take in operating business, period, right? This is just a new one in that there are some very successful, very well attended, very hardly need any advertising events in this county that now have this new caveat to them, which is, like you mentioned, regardless of the executive order, is the public going to be comfortable enough to come in numbers that make it worth your while to hold the event? And I don't know when that is. We will certainly be watching very closely the first one or two that dip their toe in the water and see how it goes. Maybe it'll be great, right? But maybe not. And it'll be interesting to see that. There's part of me that says, I think that can be helped along by groups like even this, getting out ahead of that from a marketing standpoint for that event, saying, hey, here's what we're doing, and here's why, and here's some of the things that we're doing to whatever, take precautions, make arrangements, whatever it might be, just to help, to steal the phrase that we've been using too long now, flatten that curve on the time it takes to get the public comfortable enough to come back to public events. And hopefully I'm way off and they can't wait to get back to them. That would be great, but I'm not so sure that's the case.
So just real quick to add on and clarify, when I said 90 days, I wasn't anticipating or insinuating that this would be over in 90 days, but just making a plan and only planning for the next 90 days and then making that plan again after that 90 days. So I'm sorry if that was confusing. But I also wanted to mention that from consumer perspective, we are looking at that as well. I know that we're working with our Howell Synergy group to survey our consumers and see what their level of comfort is with going to a restaurant or going into a small business. Would they like to see curbside continue in the capacity that it has been utilized? So I believe the survey went out yesterday, and we already have 377 responses from that. So it's interesting. Hopefully, once that data is compiled, we can share that with everybody.
Yeah, that'd be great, Janelle, if you could share that with all of us. That'd be really useful information. I know we talk events is kind of a big topic with the community, and they're going to be more work by far for everybody, for all of you and us. When you start throwing in food and the safety with food and serving food and, alcohol and who knows what. So anyone have any questions out there? Or did anyone have anything to add? We have some chat coming in. Renee had a good thought. She said the farmers markets may be a good indicator of how people are feeling about going out. That is very true. Good point. Pam, can you give us an update on your farmers market and how that's going?
We're working on the farmers market daily, and we're not exactly sure when we're going to be opening, but we have to follow the guidelines, the CDC guidelines. And so in our space back there, we're going to manage the number of people according to square feet and how many can be in there at one time. We're not going to be able to touch the fruits and the vegetables. At this point, we can't have jewelry and crafts. It's just the essential foods. So it's different. It's different. We have partnered this year with Selcra, so I'm excited about that. It's going to be good for us and good for Selcra, and they'll bring a lot to the table. But as far as the farmers market, it's going to be different. It's going to be monitored, where you go in a certain way, you follow like the directional signs, and then you go out, you come in one way and you have to go out the other way. We have to have washing stations where we have not had that before, and so all of that is like an additional cost for the market. But people love the farmers market, and I think that they'll still come. just have to be extremely careful. So we'll probably open it up in June, although most of the fresh produce is available in July. So we're okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Pam.
I'd like to circle back just for a second, if you don't mind, while it's fresh in my mind. We talk about opening for business and employees. The business owners need to be prepared that your employees may not want to return to work because they don't feel safe. So you got to figure out what your plan is for that, and be flexible enough to allow them, if they have to care, they may have to take time off to care for themselves or a loved one if they get sick. So those are things that I was just thinking about. That is, you need to be prepared for that. You may have employees that just flat out won't. They're still too scared to come back to work, even though you're ready to open your business. So you need to, do whatever it takes and get whatever plans are in place to be able to deal with that as well. And then the other thing, I know Chief O'Brien said that his department's a little slower. We're actually up 200 calls from last year at this time, January until now, in Howell here. And the trend that we're finding is that people are waiting. They're afraid to go to the hospital, and they're waiting so long that they are so sick when they finally call us that we're getting called, that, because it becomes, now it's a priority, right? So I'd like to reiterate to everybody that if you were sick a year ago and you would have went to the doctor or the hospital, go today. The ready cares are set up to divide people who have coughs and people who are just sick or have other issues, high blood pressures and heart problems and all that. And it's causing, for at least my department, like I said, we're up quite a bit of calls because of people are just waiting and waiting and waiting until they can't breathe and they think they're going to die, and then they're calling an ambulance instead of just 2 weeks ago they could have drove themselves to the hospital or to their own personal doctor and got their medication squared away or done whatever they needed to do. So
I think
that would be my comment.
I think what's so confusing about that is that this is sort of new where you're saying go to the hospitals, but before, until recently, they would say, even if you had the symptoms of COVID, don't go. You would hear that on the national news, don't go, stay home.
Right, but what I'm talking about is people with known diabetes, known heart problems, known high blood pressure, those known problems, and they wait and wait and wait because they're afraid to go to the hospital. That's probably the cleanest place you can go. And the parking lots are empty. There's nobody there. Now, you're not going to take your family with you, obviously, but don't wait, and reiterate that, take care of yourself.
Right. And then can I ask you, what does it mean? Because I did get that press release just now from the Livingston County Health Department. What does it mean by probable COVID? You were talking about that. So is that just going to bump up the hype on the COVID by now we're announcing probable because somebody might have a stomach ache or one of those symptoms that comes with it? Maybe now they're saying headache. If you go to work and if you have a headache, you must go home. How do you run a business like that? I don't know, but probable.
The probable is, so let's say my significant other at home was diagnosed with COVID. In me living there, I would become a probable cause or a probable case.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of ways to do that. So, but I think, Pam, when you talk about running a business, that's where this is different. As a lot of us on this call are, we don't use sick days. We don't call in sick. We show up with the sniffles. And I think that is probably the hardest thing with COVID, even where we had to tell our staff that, is if you have to check any of these boxes, here's the process for you not coming into work, because that was what it was very early on. If you are sick, stay home. And you still need to adopt those philosophies. I think you're going to see some signage up on some county buildings that say, as the county reopens, the health department is saying, look, if you're sick, don't come in our building. And it's not saying if you're diagnosed COVID, if you're sick, don't come in. And so I think you're going to, as business owners, we have to be prepared for that, because many of us were grinders, we're hard workers, we're entrepreneurial. You're going to just show up and you're going to work really hard, and I'm okay if I got a sniffle or a cough. And unfortunately, the times right now are different until we can get ahead of this whole thing. So just file that in the back of your head as a business owner, that wouldn't you rather have your person stay home and make sure it isn't something for a couple days than get 10 of your people sick on a very limited
absolutely.
workforce?
I
So
think
yeah,
I'm the worst culprit. I come in with fevers and everything. You know, it's my work ethic. You know, so I need to. I was raised like that, so I've got to just calm down and maybe, you know, take a day off and call in for a headache. That'd be like really groovy.
So you had mentioned, you know, encouraging people to stay home if they're sick, not infecting others. And I think, you know, I don't want to say that's a big topic of discussion, but, you know, it's a big topic of discussion. And earlier today, we had a webinar, and I had, we do these Zooms at noon, and I had 2 attorneys, and, you know, you have to think about the legal ramifications of that too. If you say, oh, you know, you're not sick, come to work, or vice versa, you know, there's all these new elements that are stirring the pot with all of that to consider. So, and I think Andy mentioned, you know, getting your policies in place now, and you talked about procedures and policies and things like that. You know, us chambers have these webinars. There's resources. We have resources for you if you need resources. Contact any of the chambers. The HR one was great. The health department was great. So if you need a screening tool for your employees, we have those. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can share the document with you. So if you're thinking about, oh my gosh, how do I plan for this? Do I need to rewrite my policies? Reach out to us, because we have tools for you that you don't have to start from scratch from. So just sort of giving everybody a heads up. So we do have a couple other questions coming in. So I know that there's been a topic about open burning in the county. You know, what's the latest with open burning? What can we burn? What can't we burn? As far as like the safety aspect goes. Adam, do you want to take that on?
Sure. The state DNR had put a statewide burn ban on that's a bit wide of a brush to paint with. There were some caveats in there that burning was still allowed under if it was snow covered, if it was agricultural, if it was cooking, heating, recreational type stuff. It was not well delivered or timed, and it was a bit of a struggle, especially for departments in our area, to manage that, as we all have actual local burning ordinances that, while they work in place of the state DNR rules, they don't supersede them in such cases like when the state puts a ban on. Subsequent to that, it has come back off. In fact, I think it was 24 hours before, or after rather, we kind of got together as a group and said, you know what, this is causing more harm than good. Let's all shake on going back to our original ordinances and get this done. And we did that. And about 24 hours later, the state, again with no notice, lifted that burning ban. So at the moment, everything is, from as far as open burning is concerned, is back to the way it was for everybody before this. So if you were getting permits, if you were, whatever the rules were before COVID, that's what we're back at now.
Okay, thank you, Chief Carroll. Appreciate that. You know, there's a couple questions coming in talking about what is, and maybe you guys know, maybe you don't know, or maybe, you know, Janelle and Pam know, or even Marcia, about additional outdoor seating for local restaurants. Is this a possibility? Is this a way to allow for more distancing late in the summer? Like, should restaurants start thinking about that now? What does that look like from a safety standpoint?
So
I could, oh, go ahead, Adam.
I was just going to chime in for half a second. So first of all, I would check with the municipality that you're in, right, to see if it's even allowable. That would be the first step. But secondly, on the restaurants, I would caution also on the liquor license if you're a facility that has a liquor license, because that might not be allowable either, outside, inside, or either. So I would check with those two before you just decide to do that because of social distancing.
Mike, you had something to add?
Yeah, and Brighton's got a beautiful places to eat outside. And, you know, one of the unique parts that they're going to be faced with, I think, challenge-wise is how do you keep your sidewalks nice and open for social distancing and then have outdoor seating in the same area? So just to echo on what the sheriff said is there's no doubt you're going to see some work between the businesses and the communities and what's allowed. And how do you address both things? Because it's not just one item anymore. How do we keep the social distancing on the sidewalks? How do we keep people socially distant in the seating areas as well? So lots of things to be playing through.
So when will we get those answers for, you know, so that we could share that with our businesses?
Well, I can tell you, if we probably talk businesses as a whole, all of us as a fire department are prepared and ready to help our various businesses, mostly with our fire marshals and fire inspectors on how they help calculate their occupant load. If we take the reduction that we're seeing in the smaller buildings that are allowed to be open right now, I can tell you that our fire marshals and inspectors are great resources for businesses that are opening. So if they're saying, hey, we can operate at 25% of our approved capacity, including staff, what's that number? Many of the cases are to reach out to your fire department and get with a fire marshal and fire inspector. And ours have even done a couple of virtual fire inspections to keep people safe. So before the business was opening back up, they kind of just used FaceTime or Zoom and did a virtual fire inspection. And I think that's probably where I would start thinking first if I was a restaurateur. I think hinting from the governor's various addresses, I think restaurants in our county are going to be a ladder approval somewhere after the 15th, I'm going to guess, but who knows, it could kick on farther, but maybe start to look at what other states are doing to keep social distancing. You know your restaurant based on booth space, based on tables, and how do I start to get some social distancing as one aspect. And I think that's probably the easier part than it is a couple logistic things that business owners might want to start thinking about is, do I have surgical masks or do I have masks for my employees to wear? How many am I going to give them? How often do they wash them? How often do they dispose of them? I'd start to look at, do I have enough hand washing spaces for patrons or do I have other means of cleaning hands as patrons come in and out of the store? You know, I think most of us have been to a grocery store and seen the person wiping a cart off. Is there somebody I need to dedicate to that role that I wasn't doing before? You know, even think through your cleaning procedures of the people that clean your bathrooms. How often should you clean your restroom facilities now that you didn't have? So I know we get focused on trying to say, hey, what should we do for our restaurants and inside? There's a lot of work to, I think, first be done. And how do I keep those frequent touch points? So if my restaurant was going to open, do you think you're really going to see menus like we had menus before? I can eliminate that touch point and cleaning point by going to one-use paper. Now, I'm not environmentally friendly. Maybe it's a big chalkboard. I stand up at the end of the table and I only offer 5 entrees and you get to look at it. But right, how can I be adaptive and remove some of those touch points? And that's what I would say to all of our businesses that interact with customers, right? I own a shop that has people that come in and out and look at cabinets, right? I don't think if I sold cabinets that I ever sat there and wiped off the cabinets after every person came into my showroom. But that's now something you're going to have to do, and you're going to have to do it well. And so I think that's probably the hardest part for a lot of us is trying to think through the flow as we interact with a customer. It's easy to think of a restaurant as a bar. But how do I start to take that, okay, all right, I can call the fire marshal, I get those reduced, my exits are open, my building's safe, I can let people in. Now what do I do to keep them safe when they're here? And it's going to be so much more than our restaurants and their spaces. Maybe it'll just be easier if we do stand-up eating and you stand in your little spot. I don't know.
Way to be creative.
You know, I would just like to make one comment on that. You know, I would say as a business owner, obviously you need to be very focused on your business. And I'm sure if you've been closed, you've had a lot of opportunity to think, maybe too much time. But all that said, look at other businesses, right? just if you're a restaurateur, don't just look at other restaurants, right? If you're the cabinet maker or whatever, don't just look at them. Look at how everybody else is doing business and see what would work for you, right? Oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes me feel comfortable. Or, hey, that's a great idea. So look at how other people are doing business too. Because, I mean, let's face it, you guys, if you would have said 4 months ago, 6 months ago, hey, we all need to do business this way, everybody would have said, you're crazy. We can't do it. We can't do telemedicine. We can't. Nobody even knew what Zoom was 6 months ago, right? Now that's all we're doing. All of those things. So just take all of that in and see what makes sense for your business.
Thanks, Murph. And Sheriff Murphy, I don't know, maybe you can answer this. We had a question come in from Bill Fountain. Just curious, you know, we have for all the businesses, can a business refuse someone into their business if they are known to be in the vulnerable, or maybe they know of a patron that is ill or is coming? Like, I mean, is that a judgment thing? Is it a person-to-person thing, or is there something?
So I'm not an attorney, but here's what I would say on that one. You know, if it's your business, you can refuse anybody. However, make sure that it's not a protective class, right? Make sure it's not age, sex, religion, you know, those, I had them in the top of my head, but I just had a brain fart, sorry. But just make sure that it's not a protected class and you're not being discriminatory. If you're doing it for a bona fide reason, I would say, you know what, sir, ma'am, no, I don't want you in here because of 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. And then I would also document that and put it somewhere, because that one may come back to somebody. They might try to make waves, right? But at least you'd have documentation that this is why I did it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tricky for those even, you know, like I'm thinking more public type businesses. I mean, restaurants are too, but I'm thinking more like golf courses and bigger accessible type businesses like that. As our Crow-Main library has, you know, we have these summer music concert series, people sitting out. I mean, any suggestions? I mean, I know you guys talked about all that. I mean, my suggestion would be, I mean, we've canceled our, you know, polo event for June. Well, we've moved it later in August, and we still don't know if it's gonna, you know, pop or not. So maybe this just goes along with maybe answering them. You know, you heard these guys say, and stuff might not happen in June, and you got to adapt to what your performers want to do. If they do it virtually or something, I don't know if you guys have any suggestions for them other than what we've covered.
Well, the Crow-Main one in particular, for me anyway, because I'm familiar with the space that they're speaking of. You're right. If you try to do social distancing in there, especially mask-free social distancing, you're going to run out of real estate pretty quickly. It won't be a very big crowd, but that's kind of the reality of it. That's an option. Maybe they could do both, but the trick bag that it gets you into is, first, I think you need to just take some. They're not really precautions. They're actually reasonable preparations, right? So can that be painting lines on the grass to kind of distinguish average spacing, right? And where you want folks to be, and make that as comfortable and natural as you can, I suppose. And then, you know, beyond that, here's the trick part is someone has to stand at the back of that and go, yep, that's it. Sorry, we're full. And that's not a fun job, but you're kind of stuck with that alternative in the meantime, and as the restrictions change and as they loosen, right, that'll improve, but it's not going to be in one step, as much as we all wish it would be. It will be in multi, you know, steps, and hopefully as few as possible, but that's certainly what it's looking like. But beyond that, I just circling back on Mike's, and I make sure everybody on the call, you know, certainly takes advantage of it if you can, or you desire in any way, shape, or form. You know, the inspectors and fire marshals that Mike was speaking of from your fire departments are more than happy to come out. It's tough for us to say, here's what you need to do business, because each business actually has some very unique characteristics to it. So what we would rather do is, if you have questions, thoughts, or ideas on it, just coordinate with your local fire department. We'll be happy to meet with you. Apply those current, up-to-date, as we know them that day, guidelines and rules to your business specifically, and probably even come up with some ideas for you if you'd like them. And it's a great opportunity, I think, to really customize that and do as much as you can, and have a couple other heads in the game as far as coming up with creative ways to maybe get some of this done. So we certainly are offering that to any and all businesses.
Thanks, Chief Carroll. Appreciate that. We've gone our full hour, so time flies when you're having fun, having conversations. So if there aren't any other last questions, I just wanted to kind of close and first of all, just thank all of you for your time today, and our collaboration. It's been going well, and you know, power in numbers and providing resources together for everyone, and you know, chug through, right? Pam?
Did you say chug through?
Chug through.
Chug through, and I mean that in that way that you're
red
thinking.
wine kind of.
Yes,
way.
that's the way I meant. Yes.
Chug a lug. Yeah, I know what you meant.
Yeah. What's in that
Oh,
coffee
we're
cup,
very
Adam? What's in that coffee cup, Adam? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I saw that on Facebook. Yeah, they put the little tea bag on the outside of the cup.
And there's wine inside.
Anyway, we really certainly do appreciate you all being with us. You're the greatest. We're in the greatest county here, and it's a lot of it is because of you. You keep us safe and healthy, and you're so easy to work with. You're just wonderful, and we just really appreciate and love you.
We appreciate you too, but you know, just one last thing for everybody that's still on the call. There's really no, because we are so close as a county, and it's not just public safety. I mean, look at here's the Chambers and Spark. I mean, you know, we all know each other, right? Mm-hmm. So if there's a question out there, all you got to do is probably call one or two people, and they may not have it, but they know who does the answer, right? I mean, they can put you in contact. So sheriff's office, your local PDs, your fire guys, the chamber folks, I mean, the answers are there. So please don't try to wing it, I guess, if you have a question.
I think that's a really good point, Mike. And somebody had said it earlier, there's data and then there's information. And we certainly want to be a convener of good information. We see the data all the time, and we are in constant communication, and we are sharing that, and we are taking that data and trying to create useful information for our businesses, such as reopening guidelines, these webinars, bringing together the subject matter experts and having these conversations that we hope are meaningful as businesses prepare to reopen, and what are those questions, what are those concerns, what's keeping you up at night still, ahead of what we're hoping to be a good summer. So there is no wrong door. We are all working together. We are all collaborating, and there truly is no wrong door.
For sure. Yep. So that's awesome, Marcia. I can't top that. I can top a lot of things. So I just want to say thank you again to everyone that has joined us on our webinar series. We appreciate your time. We hope it was helpful. This is being recorded. I hope I have everyone's permission to post this so other businesses can take advantage of the information. Appreciate that. Thumbs up. So with that, I think I'll just say goodbye and thank you all again. We do appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
everybody.
bye everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.